Okay, folks, this is all about the Dundee property market. We talked about it last week in detail, but this week we promised you we're going to talk about how long does it take to sell a home in Dundee. QVT! Okay, if you're ever a homeowner in Dundee thinking of selling your property, well, you've come to the right place. You're probably wondering how long it'll take to actually find a buyer overall. The timeline for selling a home actually varies depending on factors such as property type, price, and market conditions. Fortunately, we compiled the latest statistics for the 424 Dundee homes that have sold in the last 3 months. Remember, subject to concluded missives. This means it's actually had an offer on it, it's been agreed in principle, but it's still to go through the conveyancing process in order to finalise it for keys handed over, money exchanged, houses exchanged at the end of the contract. So this is subject to conclusion of missives. So, split down as well, we've taken these houses by house type, so detached houses, semi-detached homes, terrace houses and flats. And to give you a clearer picture, Craig's going to give you some in-depth detail and in-depth stats towards that. Craig, over to you. Can we break this down into numbers and how long that takes on average?
Yeah, so let's have a look at kind of the different types of home and how long these individual homes take to sell on the Dundee market. So, of the 45 detached homes sold, and again, as Jim mentioned, subject to concluding missives, in the last 3 months, the average time from coming onto market to sale agreed was 85 days. So, a median time of 57 days, but the average time from coming onto market to sale agreed was 85 days on detached homes. Now, taking that down into the semi-detached homes, of the
It's quite a long
109,
time though, Craig, when you think about it. I mean, that's about 3 months for
yeah, longer.
detached homes. But there's no surprise there because detached homes are obviously higher value, I suppose. It'll be interesting to see what happens with interest rates today. In the next hour, more or less, just shows you it's live. We'll have a publication from the Bank of England to see if interest rates have actually dropped a quarter point or if they've not at all, and the interesting facts behind that. So what about semi-detached then? Let's have a look at that. What's the numbers for that?
Yeah, so I think you made a good point there. Obviously, the detached homes being of slightly higher value generally in Dundee, so taking that extra bit of time. But moving down into the semi-detached, so 109 Dundee semi-detached homes sold subject to concluding missives in the last 3 months. The average time from coming onto the market to sale agreed was 56 days, so drastically less than the
Mhm.
detached properties, but obviously as well, almost double the amount of homes. So 45 for the done detached homes in the last 3 months, and 109 for semi-detached in the last 3 months. But a
Roughly
massive,
about 2 months to get an offer on it.
yeah, taking about 2 months to get an offer there. So much less than the detached homes. And we can then take that into the terraced and kind of townhouse style. So of the 40 Dundee terraced townhouses sold, subject to concluding missives, in the last 3 months, the average time from coming onto the market to sale being agreed was 43 days. So a little bit over a month there, but obviously, again, drastically less than the detached properties that we've discussed earlier.
Mhm.
Now, last but not least, the flats and apartments. So, of the 202 Dundee flats and apartments, so drastically more property, but 202 Dundee flats and apartments sold subject to concluding missives in the last 3 months. The average time from coming to market to having a sale agreed was 66 days. So, a little bit over the kind of 2
Yeah.
month mark there, with a median time of 42 days overall.
That's a couple of months when you think about it, and that's quite interesting because semi-detached properties are actually selling faster than apartments, but in flats. But you would think apartments and flats would probably sell a lot quicker because, basically, because they're probably at a lower price point in comparison. So it's interesting to think. Do you think that's a lot to do with maybe there's a lot of just first-time buyers, but not very many investors now? Do you think there's a lot less investors buying properties in the Dundee area and Angus area than there was maybe a year ago or 2 years ago?
Definitely, and I think that the semi-detached property, the locations of these being more potentially out with the kind of CBD, more family-orientated areas, so getting snatched up a bit quickly. And as you say, investors maybe not looking as much into the kind of central market for rentals or investment in Dundee.
Now, for any of you noticed here, any of the analytical people, like I am, an accountant by trade, previously, 109 plus 40 plus the 202 comes to 396. It's 424 we talked about, minus the 424, leaves you with 28 properties, actually, are not in these figures, but they account for things like your commercial land, your building plots, your commercial properties, and your kind of mobile homes that will appear in these statistics as well, which come up. So that's just to give you an insight into why these numbers don't add up to the 424 that we talked about. But interestingly enough, when we look at price points for these areas, just look at the Scottish price points first. This is quite interesting overall. Let me share the screen when we look at Scotland. And look at their reports. This is the November report, the latest house price index out by the Scottish National Office of National Statistics. So detached properties are 344,000 or 345, kicking the backside off it. In Scotland overall, semi-detached is 207, so 208,000. Terraced is 166,000. Flats and maisonettes 135,000. So average price in Scotland for a property right now is 195,000. Now, this is quite interesting overall when you look at the numbers for Angus and Dundee. So you're looking at Dundee and Angus. Angus, very affordable, 173,000 on average to buy a property. When you're looking at the city of Dundee, 146,000, even more affordable. Oh my goodness. Why am I not investing in the Dundee and Angus area? That's what I want to ask myself. And that's what I would ask a lot of landlords and investors. You know, there is people out there going, shh, don't tell everyone. It's a really good market to invest in overall. But that kind of just shows you when you look at these prices on average for Scotland overall for these house types, and the average price in Scotland is 196,000 as opposed to Angus, which is 174, and 146 for the city of Dundee. Still makes Dundee and Angus a very affordable area, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So these figures actually show the average days of property in the Dundee area it takes to get an offer. However, selling a home actually doesn't stop there. I had someone the other day actually. We sold their home extremely quick. We sold it for, I've got a funny feeling it was maybe 10 or 15,000 more than what it was on at, which yeah, it was a significant amount. It was almost about 15 or 20% more than, and that's unusual in this at this point in time. And but their complaint was we sold it too quick. A minute, what's going on here? That's quite interesting considering you look at these numbers and you think on average it takes a lot longer to sell a property, and you're definitely not getting these types of prices. If we go back to this market and we look at this and where we had here, if you look at that number and you look at that overall, City of Dundee, a year on year, 2.2% increase. City of Angus, or just Angus area, 4.3% increase year on year. So it's quite a startling statistic to actually be able to get 10 or 15% over that value pretty quick. So it just shows you with the right digital marketing and with the right negotiation strategy and the one-to-one service, that I think that kind of breaks that mold and maybe moves from average to possibly an above average sort of result overall. What's your thoughts on that, Craig?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, above average result, and think maybe astonishing that people would see that kind of percentage over and above the home report as you've stated there. So, as you said, currently taking on average 75 days from agreeing agreeing to sell to completing a Dundee property.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's 75 days from the agreeing the sale to the complete. So the 75 days it's taking extra is literally down to the conveyancing process.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I was trying to explain to that person that said, you've sold my house too quick. It's like, aye, we've sold it. But that doesn't mean we've qualified the buyer, but that doesn't mean to say it might not come back on, because there is fall throughs, and we will talk about, and there is withdrawals from the market as well. So there's a lot of work still to go along and in the background overall to get that property over the line, especially keeping the solicitor on track. although it's quite difficult sometimes to keep a solicitor on track, unless it's solicitors you work with that the person's actually with. So we highly recommend some solicitors now and again, because we work well with them and we know their processes and we know they're quite efficient, and they're quite obliging when it comes to working extra hours overall for no extra money. That's what I love about them. So we tend to use certain solicitors and refer to certain solicitors, although if you're using your existing solicitor, we're more than happy to go with them as well. We'll work well with them as well. It's just that we like to control the process from start to finish to make sure it does go over the line, to have a higher certainty, so there's not a fall through overall, because fall throughs are actually quite high at this point in time, right across Scotland itself and right across the UK. So it currently takes, as you said, Craig, but that's interesting because it actually says over the whole of the UK, the average is actually 119 days. So it's still quite efficient overall. Now, while statistics provide an overview for the home buying and selling timeline, it's essential to delve deeper into why these homes may sell faster or slower in the Dundee and Angus area. So we've actually compiled some information to explore these factors to help you maximise your chances of successfully selling your home in the Dundee vicinity. Why does it take longer to sell a home in some Dundee properties, Craig? What's your thoughts on that? What you're thinking?
Yeah, so I think, as we mentioned a second ago, the 75 days from agreeing, but 119 days on national average. So Dundee kind of a little bit ahead of that kind of national average figure. But why does it take longer to sell some of the Dundee properties specifically? So selling a home in Dundee involves more than simply placing it on the market and waiting for offers. There is a variety of challenges that can affect how quickly your Dundee home or property sells. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the most common reasons might linger on the market, or why it might linger on the market longer than expected. So, number one, as we would maybe expect, setting the right asking price for your Dundee home. And something we've mentioned a few times on the updates, getting
Yeah.
the right price from the outset is crucial to getting a good result on your property. So, the biggest factor in selling a home is pricing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Overpricing will deter buyers initially, as your home may not appear in their search results. So we all know the kind of different blocks that you can set in terms of your price points. So it may not appear in their search results and appear out of kilter or out of kind of the swing with similar properties that are for sale, or actually might not align with their expectations in the end. So
So this is quite interesting. So a couple of years ago, boom market, it was really go for broke and go for the highest point possible, wasn't it? The strategy was let's just try and hit the stars and we'll catch the moon on the way down. But the market's pivoted and the market's changed in the last couple of years. So if you're a seller out there, you've maybe been in the market a bit longer than usual, which the numbers pan out in here. So there's no doubt about it. On average, some people will be on a lot longer than expected, or what they expected, and their reasoning is possibly down to that. It's a different market now. It's a different strategy now, and it tends to be, if you've got a home report, then you're probably wanting, instead of pricing it at the home report value, and trying to get over that, it's probably price it below the home report value in order to push somebody back up to that. Because remember, your home report value is a reflection of the current properties actually sold in the last year. That's all it is, or the last couple of years indexed up. So it does reflect the current price that actually everybody's been getting in the home report now, and that is the actual base. So, for example, if somebody got 20% on their property 2 years ago, that 20% will be built into your valuation now. So you can't always get that 20%, because that'll be the starting point for the new home reports, because that's what people were prepared to pay at that point in time. I hope that makes sense to a lot of people listening in for that, and understanding how pricing is so important now, and to get that pricing accurately, especially if your margins and the average prices, as you saw there for the national statistics for the Dundee and Angus areas, are around about the 2 and 3 and 4%, because if that's the average, then if everybody expects 10% more, then that's probably never going to happen for that reason. So that's why you have to take the right advice from your estate agent, and the right insight from your estate agent, and ask them where they got these numbers. Now, remember, in the past 24 months, 84.38% of Dundee homes have listed for sale actually successfully and actually sold, resulting in somebody actually moving. But the remaining 15.26% were withdrawn from the market without a sale. Now, the solution for that then is, I think, is really down to working with a knowledgeable estate agent. who understands the local market where you are at, and researches what similar homes in that area that you're in, for example, Angus and Dundee, have sold for, and actually seek value. Now, I'll say this tongue in cheek: seek valuations from multiple agents if you're unsure about, your value of your property. But we'll more or less be all the same figures if we're all doing the same homework, because what we're doing is actually just doing the same information as what a surveyor will do for the home report. So we're actually taking the same data and the same information as a surveyor would do. We're actually speaking to a local surveyor as well of what their insight and what their thoughts are before we even come to see you. So we've more or less got an idea about where your house price sits before we've even actually seen you. And it's a case of just coming round and verifying that. And if you've got something which is beautiful and beyond that, then it's easy to add that factor on. If you've got something that's maybe less than that because you're needing a bit of work on it, it's easy to add, take that factor off as well. So to give you the accurate price about where your home report will come in, your final result is all down to digital marketing and a strong negotiator. That's probably key in that situation. And that's what the agent needs to excel in: their digital marketing and their negotiation. And you'll be able to tell that because you'll sit face to face with that person. It's an interview after all. You're interviewing that person to see if that person is the person that's going to be capable and give you the confidence that they will sell your house for the best price and the best in the least possible time and get you the result you want. That might not be always the reason. It might be the fact that you want a longer entry date. You want that to be longer because you've not found anywhere to go yet, but you want the certainty of knowing that you've got your house sold and you've got a number for your house that will actually allow you to make that choice of where you buy your next house and how much you'll pay for your next house. And that's probably maybe key and fundamental. That's maybe your initial key driver out of that. And that's the reason that you would choose the right estate agent to do that job for you. So remember, your estate agent sitting in front of you is an interview. It's not the other way around where they're interviewing you. You are in the driving seat. You're the one that calls the shots. But when they open their mouth and give you a valuation, the first words out of your mouth, if you've not seen it yet, is, where did you get that figure from? Where is the comparables? Where is the properties have actually sold like mine or similar to mine, or maybe just a bit similar, because yours might be quite unique. It might be a grade C or grade B listed, which are not all the same properties, but there will be examples of properties in similar age group and similar type that they'll be able to extrapolate exactly where the valuation of your house probably should be, and maybe even do a walkthrough to send over the surveyor so they will actually be able to give you an accurate figure before you've even walked in the door and before you've even put it on the market, without actually having to outlay any money at all in the beginning to know where you are. That is key and fundamental. That's where I would say is what it's all about. What about estate agent performance? Is that important, Craig?
Yeah, definitely. And a great point in terms of how the home reports kind of brought to it and explaining, or the agent kind of explaining the process through for somebody, as you said, is really important from the get-go. So the choice of estate agent plays a pivotal role in how fast your home sells, even if it sells at all. As mentioned, a lot of properties withdrawn from the market, 15% in Dundee. So if it even sells at all, an estate agent plays a pivotal role in that. So some agents excel at marketing properties and maintaining active communication with potential buyers on their mailing list. So proactive, not reactive, while others may fall short of that. If your agent isn't delivering on their promises that were set out at, shall we say, the interview, don't hesitate to follow up and hold them accountable for things that were promised. Hold them accountable for the strategy. Hold them accountable for the price point that was given, and hold them accountable for the digital marketing that was said would be done.
Yeah.
An estate agent specializing in the Dundee property market specifically, I ensure my clients receive a tailored marketing strategy from the get-go. How we're going to market your property, who it's going to be marketed to, and how we're going to follow up with that and be proactive from the get-go, especially for the city's nuances, complete transparency, and ongoing updates to secure the best results from start to finish. So again, agent plays a pivotal role in that from the get-go and how fast your home will sell. So something that, as we said, keep them accountable, keep your agent accountable, and always follow up on what's being done to market that effectively.
Yeah, that's a really valid point, actually, about that. Definitely, I would say so. So, if you come onto that, then how important is overall is the presentation? What could we say about that? Photographs, video, things like that. I mean, how important is that?
Yeah, so it's one thing that we always look at, as you said. We're all on portals, etc., looking at properties and what's coming to the market. But how do you get your property to stand out from the rest and really be effective in today's kind of digital world? So in today's digital world, the high quality photographs are essential. Dundee buyers scrolling through the likes of Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market listings form the first impression based on photographs alone. Poor or outdated photography, taken on a phone maybe, can leave a property overlooked, especially seasonal photographs. Christmas
Yeah.
trees still start. We're in June, the Christmas tree's still up. There's tinsel around the pictures. Snow on the ground in the summer. You know, we're sitting in 25 degrees, fingers crossed, and it's still got snow on the ground. I mean, it's not, the two are not symbiotic. So
I
the
think I
reveal,
think the other thing as well is most people will engage with a video now.
yeah,
I think most people do engage with video, and I think there's more engagement with a video when somebody's talking about the property and
yeah,
walking you through it. And I have found that some of the top agents in the UK and overseas as well, in Australia and America, actually excel in video presentation. In other words, taking people around as if they're actually in the room with them in a viewing process, rather than actually just what is the easy option, which is, to be honest, is a lazy option, as far as I'm concerned, is you just get a videographer to go in and put some music on it. That really doesn't have any more engagement than the photographs do. It might capture somebody's imagination because it's a video and people like watching videos, but it's akin to more or less watching your television, your favourite television programme, but then actually just deciding, I tell you what, we'll just look at pictures and then we'll read the script. And it's like, well, I don't really want to watch it anymore if I'm just going to look at pictures and read the script. But that's effectively how traditional estate agents is done right now. So I think video, hence the reason why our websites are designed to actually run with the video first, the video walkthrough, because I think that's more important that when people, you'll catch people as a result of that. I don't know why Rightmove and Zoopla don't do that yet. I have a sneaking suspicion it's because every agent isn't doing video. So therefore, they can't really put that as the lead option for them. Whereas we're always doing video, so that's the lead option. When people click through, immediately the video comes up as a result of that. And I think that makes it easy for someone to make a decision on whether they should actually go any further or whether they should discount the property. But I think the success is more about what the property is to someone else, because people will buy the benefits. They don't really. Yeah, the features count, but if it's a 3 bedroom, it's a 3 bedroom. I can get a 3 bedroom anywhere. What I want to know is how close it is it to the schools. Where are all the cafes, bistros, and restaurants? Where's the beach? Where's the golf course? Where are all the amenities that I want? Where are all the things that I love? Where are all the cycling places? Where are all the running routes? These are all the things I want to know, because that's the lifestyle I want. And people buy for lifestyle. You don't buy really a property because it's functional. Because then if you apply the same process, then we'd all be living in the same type of house if it was functionality. We'd all be living in the same type of house, wouldn't we? That's the
definitely.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
100%.
why we don't all live in the same house, because we all see the different benefits to the house that we want. So the great way to market, if you want a really good idea about this, and you might want to tell your estate agent to do this, because a lot of estate agents don't understand how to do this, is to market your property on the reason that you bought your property in the first place. If you bought your, obviously, if you were splitting up or something like that, that's no the reason you would market it. Because I was thinking to myself, that's not the reason, tongue in cheek. But if you were thinking about you bought it because your children were young, or there was an area where there was no children and you liked that aspect, or the beach was close by because you do a lot of running and you do a lot of walking, you take your dog out to the local parks and the local glen, and near the loch and stuff like that. If that's what you bought it for in the first place, then that's effectively what the next person will buy it for as well. And more than likely, they'll probably be the same age group as you were when you first bought yours as well, because that's why it appealed to you, because that's the type of property it was and the vicinity it was as well. And that's generally that's the button it should hit, because more than likely everybody else is in that same sort of demographic at that time when your property goes on the market. And that's where your best appeal will probably be. So there's a top tip how to do it. Coming back to you, Craig, and what other things that we've got to think about?
Yeah, so another few points, but a great one in terms of the video walkthrough as opposed to a video made from images. When that's done, the images can be distorted and can set unrealistic expectations of the property from the get-go. With a walkthrough, nothing can be hidden. It's a great way to market a property from the outset. So moving on, we're looking at mortgage
That is
challenges.
actually quite right, and I will forgive me for just coming back
No,
to that.
you're
That's
good.
quite interesting because it's easy to put a blue sky into a picture to make your house look really good. It's easy to brighten it up, but the reality is, a video is a live representation, and there's no much you can really do without having to go into a huge expense in order to manipulate that. But that's just going to that's just going to manipulate somebody into coming round and then saying to themselves, "But this isn't actually what I saw in the video or the photographs." I used to hear that quite a lot. Not with us, but when other people were saying I did a viewing with so and so and all the rest of it, I used to have people walk into me when I was doing the viewing with them, and they would say, "This is a breath of fresh air, actually," because and I was like, "Okay, why'd you say that?" Looking a bit confused. I mean, well, your actual photographs represent the property. It's we've been to loads and loads of other estate agents, and when we go around, it's the when we look at the photographs and we look at the property, they're like they're not exactly the same. It's like it's not the same property. So you don't want to misrepresent your client's property. You want to show it in the best light possible and push forward the real reason why you would want to buy that property. That's the whole point. Uh, Mortgage challenges. You were just about to talk about that.
Yes, so some properties in Dundee might be more complex for buyers to secure mortgages on for various reasons. So, for example, apartments with short-term leases, unique construction materials, so potentially substandard property, not built to current built regulations, or flats above shops that can raise concerns for lenders due to insurance
Yeah.
purposes and various other challenges. So these challenges can limit the pool of potential buyers that would be looking at your property specifically. If your property falls into one of these categories, work with your agent to address these issues. How can these be overcome from the outset? So, a couple of solutions, for example, extending your lease and being able to look at lease extending options, highlighting property strengths, can make your Dundee home more marketable to a wider audience and therefore give it more chance of actually concluding when it comes to selling.
There's also the prospect there is people out there waiting to put their house in the market, and there's people waiting for an interest rate cut. But what you don't realise is even their interest rate cuts, we're literally got half an hour before that's announced. Even though it comes down a quarter of a point, your mortgage lender has already built that into current mortgage valuations and mortgage prices as it stands, because there's an expectation it's going to be cut anyway. So they move forward and they build that in. And even if they do 0.25 on a £200,000 mortgage, 0.25 on a £200,000 mortgage. I mean, that's a lot considering the average. Well, let's take the average house price in Scotland, 196,
Yep.
and then multiply it by, if it's an average, you're more than likely you've got somebody that's probably sitting on 80% loan to value because they've built up equity in their existing properties when they've upgraded at that time. So 156, 160,000 is probably the average mortgage itself. In fact, I might actually have the statistics to hand. Now, let me just have a quick look and see what the average mortgage is in Scotland. Average mortgage, buyer status, average mortgage, funding status. Average mortgage, it's 203,000. So let's take the 203,000 for the average mortgage. It's getting bought. An average cash buyer in Scotland is paying 177,000 actually for a cash buyer. And the average price of a mortgage buyer is a 203, which was about right, 203, and it was 80% loan to value. So times 0.8 is 162. So no bad. Then multiply it by 0.0025. It only represents saving you £406 a year for a buyer. Yeah, exactly. I know. Your face said it all when you said that remark. Divide that by 12, and literally, someone's holding out and buying a property for the case of £34 a month
Yeah, it's your
on average.
Starbucks bill for the month,
Now,
isn't it?
that's at a quarter point reduction, but the banks won't do that. If anything, they'll only do a tenth of it. They'll only do a 0.1 reduction, because
Yeah.
we all know when base rates come down 0.25, the banks then turn around and go, well, we might decrease our mortgage rates by 0.1. Wait a minute, what happened to the 0.25? But they factored in most of that already on the expectations and and what's going to happen. So even if it came down by 0.1, that average price by 0.1, 0.001, is £161 a month, a year, which is divided by 12. You're saving yourself 13 quid for holding off. Are you going to hold off buying your dream property for the sake of saving £13 a month? Really? That's all you're doing. Go and buy your dream property now. Interest rates coming down won't make a significant difference at all. It's interest rates now which will give you certainty about what the cost is going to be to service that mortgage for the future as a result. That's the most important point you've got to do. So it's locking in a deal which makes your numbers work now. So you've got certainty and you've got a budget to work with. So you're not left to an open market. What happens if interest rates go up? Oh, you're paying more now.
Yeah.
Maybe got that wrong then. You maybe didn't buy early enough. And that's the key. And it's the same with selling. Oh, I'll put my house on the market when the interest rates possibly come down because that'll make it more attractive and I'll have a bigger audience. No, it won't. It'll still be the same people. People do not buy for monetary terms. They buy for circumstances. New baby coming along. You can't tell a baby to wait, by the way. It's coming in 9 months, whether you like it or not. Can I say, could you wait a couple of months till I get a new house? It's not going to happen. Kids have gone. They're now at university. I'm wanting to downsize. So you're going to wait and hold off for interest rate cut while you're paying more council tax, more utilities, more repairs and improvements, and you're constantly climbing that stairs and you're doing that garden that you now can't afford the time or the energy to do. Remember that. Why would you put up with that to save £13 a month? It's going to cost you more to hold out and hold on and hold out for that reason. And that's key and fundamental. That's the thing about mortgages, about the fact that mortgages will always be around. If somebody wants to afford the house, here's a really good way to afford the house. If you've not got the highest, the valuation that you've got in terms of the mortgage you can get. So if you've got a house at maybe 880,000 and you've got 160,000 approval up to a mortgage, move the mortgage term out 10 years from 25 to 35. Your lending might be able to go up as a result. Aye, you'll pay a bit more, but you'll have the house you really want. And how much more is that going to be? And is your circumstances going to be the same for the next 35 years? No, it's not. Your salary is going to go up over the next 35 years. Your mortgage is going to stay the same, remember, because the amount you've borrowed and the interest rate is on average usually typically about the same. So that's never going to change, but your salary is going to go up. Therefore, that's going to be a less proportionate amount of your total salary over time. Deficit reduction is what that's called. When a mortgage stays the same and inflation eats away, it's called a mortgage deficit reduction. It is brilliant. How to devalue your mortgage. It's a great idea. And landlords use it all the time. A house that they've paid for 20 years ago has got the same mortgage on an interest only, but the value 20 years ago and the mortgage they've got 20 years ago is significantly less in terms of mortgage value than it is today. It's eroded the mortgage. It's a bonus. It's a plus to investors to do that. And that's one of the upsells of being a property investor. One of the upsells is the mortgage deficit reduction that you get and the bonus you get and the devaluation of the mortgage over a period, over the long term. That's another story. What about the timing of the sale then? When we talk about that, what's more important about what do we need to talk about the timing of the sale and how we can influence this? Is there a specific time of year? Does it really matter?
Yeah, some great points there, I think, about the mortgages, though, and I think a lot of viewers won't understand that in too much detail. So I think it's good to go over that and what it really means in real terms. So, looking at timing, the timing of year can influence how quickly your property sells. I think it's something that we all discuss quite a lot at this time of year, and when is the right time to sell. Spring and summer typically see heightened buyer activity on average as a general rule of thumb, while autumn and winter may present a slower market. External factors such as economic uncertainty, mortgage rates can also impact buyer behaviour. But as Jim's rightfully pointed out, don't hold out on your dream home for that, £13 a month. It just isn't worth it over the long term. 20 years hassle for £13 a month. Just do it. Just go for it. But
it's interesting about the timing of the sale. You mentioned that. It's interesting when you mention the timing of the sale. This is quite an important one as well. If you're waiting to put your house on in spring, you're just lining yourself up with everybody else that's waiting to put their house on in spring. And if you understand supply and demand in economics, the more supply you've got, the less demand. The more demand you've got, less supply, price goes up. More supply you've got, less demand, price goes down. So when should you put your house on the market? At a time where it's quieter. Because the buyers are still out there. Remember, it's circumstances that drive it. The right buyers are out there at the right point in time. It's circumstances that drive it. It's not the time of year for a buyer. It's the circumstances around it. The time of year just gives people focus because they've got longer to look. Because the nights are lighter and the days are longer, therefore they can view from day to day rather than weekend to weekend because they want to see the outside during the day, and that's not possible during a winter period or a late autumn period because it's darker at night and they won't be able to see that. That's why it ekes out a bit. Plus the fact that some agents are like, well, I got my Christmas hat on, not really wanting to do any house sales until next year now. It does happen. I know it does happen because I'm a buyer and I've been a buyer for 30 years as an investor, and I've been almost like people have tried to put me off. It's like, well, can we do it after Christmas? And I'm like, what? You want to sell the house or no?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
I've often been tempted to go to the person's door and go, do you realise your agent's trying to put me off? And they'll just look at a sour grape, so I can't be bothered. But it's interesting to see that and hear that happening, especially when you get that personal experience from someone that they do that to you. So that's the time in the year. And the time to sell a property is, guess what? Always now. If your circumstances dictate, you sell it now. But the most advantageous time is sell it off season because everybody else is selling in the main seasons. And that's who you're competing against. So if you want best price for your house, you sell it off season. Remember, people do not need to walk into an office anymore. They've got this. Everything's on here. This is the office. In here. It doesn't matter where the person's located, your agent. It makes no difference at all. It's all down to what their strategy is to get in people's minds on here, to disrupt this, to be the person, the disruptor. That's what it's all about. Getting on that, getting on this format, not in an office, not in a window card, anything like that. It's how you do your digital marketing strategy. And then more importantly as well is how you retarget people and how you negotiate with them as well. That's what it comes down to. So timing, yes, there is some ambiguity, but a lot of people put their house on the market in spring. A lot of people then put their house on the market in the autumn when all the kids go back to school because its life gets in the way, and that's why it's seasonal like that. It's nothing to do with the fact that everybody buys at that point in time. But remember as well, when you put your house on the market, that seller now becomes a buyer, and about 90% of the time, well, 81% of the time to be exact, the seller becomes a buyer. Because some of the sellers in your local area, by the way, because some of the sellers actually move out the area, some of the sellers are selling to go into rent accommodation, and some of the sellers are actually, unfortunately, deceased estates. So that's why that 19% is there as well. So every seller more or less becomes a buyer in the majority of cases, and 81% of the cases on average. And they will go on to buy. So when they all come into market, that's when you've got your buyers there as well. But the people that really want it will go now because they really want your house. And that's the key for your agent to do, to retarget and get in front of these people. Get in front. And I don't mean by putting it just on Rightmove. And I don't mean just by putting it on Zoopla. That's not a strategy. That's just what everybody does. It's about how do they engage with somebody on social media? How do they catch people's attention? Are they available? Are they available? Are they Dolly Parton 9 till 5, Monday to Friday? Or are the Arkwright open all hours, Ronnie Barker? That's the key. And I mean by availability, not their office. I'm talking about availability. Are they available? Are they contactable after hours through the various different channels, through Messenger, through WhatsApp, through mobile communication, all these different things? Where are they going to? Where's the leads going to? Is it going to a central source? Is it just somebody somewhere doesn't even know your area at all, doesn't even know your property at all, and it goes to that central source and the person processes it and then it hands it on to someone else who then deals with it at that point in time? Do they actually know anything about your property? I would say the chances are they don't. I've experienced that. I've experienced that as well with being a buyer. It's not a nice thing to experience because you're just a number. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And that's why we do a one-to-one personal service for that very reason. We're not a mass market box shifter producer. We're a one-to-one personal service to get the best result for you and to find out how to get you from A to B in the most efficient manner possible and relaxing and stress-free manner possible as well. So, selling your home in Dundee. Let's talk about this. Final words on this then, Craig. Final words. If you were going to recommend anything to someone, what would you say to them?
Yeah, so I think you've hit a great point there in terms of the timing and how crucial it is in terms of going to market now if that's what you're looking to do. Because if you're waiting until spring, you could potentially have, at the moment, you can have 2 buyers for 1 property, basic supply and demand. As we go later in the year, we get into more property coming on the market. That amount of sellers available for your property can almost half. So if you are looking to get the best results for your home, all about timing, go to market now and get the ball rolling. But selling your home, we recognize that selling your home is more than just a transaction. As Jim said there, it's about getting from A to B seamlessly, efficiently, and as relaxed as possible with as little effort. So it's more than just a transaction. It's a journey that requires expertise, preparation, and persistence. Key one there, persistence. It's not always just a one shoe fits all. It's not a 9 to 5. It's persistent. An estate agent.
And I think that's key overall,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think for you being the primary estate agent for the Dundee and Angus area, then probably just reach out to yourself. My final words on this is probably if you're thinking about selling your house, I think it's about doing your homework first. I think it's also about getting your valuation now in order and preparation and getting the advice necessary possible in order to make sure your house is in the best possible state. If that would, the best possible position to maximise the return that you've got. After all, you're not there to give away your house for nothing. But again, be realistic about what market we're in right now. Again, I'll bring you back to these statistics. The average price. Let me just share this again so you understand this for the Dundee area and for the Angus area. So let's go back and we'll look at this is their numbers. This is all about actually the health of the market. Angus and Dundee, 156 September last year, year before, and last year 142, which is all right, balanced market, 208, 238 more sold this year than the year before for the city of Dundee, which is actually a bonus as well. So a healthy market overall, not a declining market in terms of Angus and Dundee. If you go on to look at the average price as we go there, the average price in Angus 173. If your house is more than 173, then you'll obviously automatically more than likely have less buyers on average than the average price. If your price is less, you'll probably have more buyers because, again, it's affordability issue. It's where people can afford. So 173,000 average price in Angus, so you can work out for yourself. City Dundee, 146. Again, if you're more than that, you're obviously going to have a less buyer market than you will. It's a typical marketing triangle as you go up and down there. There it is right there. And your price goes up this way. So this is the top end of the price. And this is the number of buyers at the bottom. So as your price is a lot lower in the marketing triangle, you'll attract a lot more buyers for that price point. It's a lot lower. As your price begins to creep up, your buyer demand starts to fall out. So literally when you get to £2 million in the area, you've got maybe one buyer every 3 months, which is up here. That's typically how it'll work on average. And that's the best advice to give somebody. Be realistic, get your estate agent out and make sure you get the right advice. But more importantly, when you get that valuation, ask them where they got it from. Ask them to prove it. Ask them what time they think they'll take to sell your house. What time on average a house does take to sell in Dundee or Angus. As they've been watching this, they'll probably know by now. If they've not, maybe think about it and maybe not realise. All right. Thanks very much for coming on, Craig. Really appreciate it. For anybody else, if you want to make comments, thank you very much, Angela, for commenting as well. If anybody else wants to speak to us, you can message us direct on these posts. You can set some in the comments and we'll catch up later. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye for now.
Take care.